Welcome into the DFS Den. It's Dave Eddy here again. You can find me on Twitter at Corporal Eddy. We're talking NFL playoffs now for DFS. If you haven't checked out my showdown videos, I have made a video for each specific game. Broke it down as far as, my thought process, position by position, and how I'm attacking the showdowns in those games. Here, we're talking about the entire slate. So I'm doing Saturday, Sunday, and Monday games, so we can, mix everything in there. I'll probably be doing a little bit of Saturday only, a little bit of Sunday only, but I'm mostly going to be invested in the entire weekend. I'm excited because normally small slates are annoying, and the smaller it is, the worse it is. You just have less options, and so usually you don't have a whole ton of great options. It's playoff time, so, theoretically, all the teams that are in here are pretty decent, have some good players on them. So there's actually a lot to choose from here. So I am pretty excited. If you have been enjoying those showdown videos, or if you're just a nice person, go ahead and drop a like down here real quick. Let me know that, you're watching the video. Let me know that you've enjoyed it. Really appreciate it. And then later on in the video, towards the end, you're going to be able to have a little button come up right over here that you're going to be able to subscribe to. And if you turn on those notifications, you can get an alert every single time a new video comes out. So if you're like, quite a few people that have reached out to me and let me know how much these videos have been helping them and how much more money they're winning, the least you can do is drop a like. And if you're not subscribed already, go ahead and do so. But let's go ahead. Let's start in on the quarterback. So I'll tell you, a lot of guys that you can like here this week. For me, it's going to start with Josh Allen. He's got a great matchup against Miami. He's done pretty well against them so far this year. Week 15, he put up almost 40 DraftKings points. That's a 300-yard game with 4 touchdowns, and he got 77 on the ground. Earlier in the year, they played week 3. Put up a little over 30 points on 400 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, and he rushed for 50. So no reason to think that in a game I'm expecting the Bills to win pretty easily. No reason to think that Josh Allen's not going to have a big game. And here I'm going to force just one stacking partner. What I like to do with the quarterbacks here on these smaller slates, because we have less options, I think correlation becomes that much more important. If it's a quarterback that I don't feel like they're going to do a whole lot on the ground, then I want to stack them with 2 pass catchers here. I think that's how they're going to become optimal. Now, your guys that can run a little bit, Allen would be one of them. I'm okay with only forcing one guy, but I probably will end up with 2 in a lot of lineups because Allen obviously is a different beast. So a lot of Stephon Diggs with him, a lot of Dawson Knox with him as well. So next guy I want to talk about, Daniel Jones. I think he's interesting because he faced Minnesota not that long ago. It was week 16 and had one of his best games of the year. Put up 25 DraftKings points, had 334 yards through the air, had a touchdown, and 34 yards on the ground as well. I mean, Jones isn't a guy who's typically going to absolutely dominate on the ground, but he gives you enough points that it's very worthwhile. And, you kind of here have the difference between Allen for me and Jones is that Allen's going to be at the top of the pay scale, $7,900 on DraftKings, whereas as far as playable quarterbacks for me this week, Jones is at the bottom at $5,600. So $1,300 difference isn't insane. It's not like, some of the differences we see on the main slates whenever we've got, more expensive quarterback and an even cheaper option, but the difference is valuable. And I mean, Jones in this matchup, I could see having a good game. I expect that it's going to be close. I don't think either team's, going to blow the other one out. So I think we're going to have a lot of back and forth. Minnesota definitely can push the Giants or vice versa. So, I'm looking to stack him with at least one pass catcher. Probably not going to put Barkley in that mix, even though obviously he's a great pass catcher. But I'm going to look to stack it with a receiver or a tight end. And if Barkley ends up fitting, then so be it. But I'm not going to force it. And Justin Herbert is another guy here that I'm interested in. Obviously, we know Justin Herbert is a pretty good quarterback. Hasn't been doing all that great here lately. Hasn't scored over 20 points here in the last 4 weeks. He had a 4-week stretch before that where he was. And it's not like he's been facing really tough matchups either for the most part. So he's on a downswing right now, but going up against Jacksonville, who has been, getting shredded all year long in the air. So, I can see a good game here. They faced off earlier in the season, week 3. Jaguars won 38-10, and Herbert had 297 yards, so 3 short of the 300-yard bonus and a touchdown. He's not a guy who's going to, get you a whole lot on the ground. So when I'm playing Herbert, I'm going to want to stack him with 2 pass catchers. And, Keenan Allen is going to be my primary target there. I don't expect Mike Williams to play, so I think that really bumps up Keenan's value on this slate. And then, of course, Eckler is another guy who, the guy might as well be a wide receiver with the volume that he gets. And so he's a guy that, I'm also very interested in. So I'm not saying, obviously all of my Herbert stacks are going to be with Allen and Eckler, but I'm definitely going to have one of those guys in with those stacks. And then, I'm a little interested in Dak. I'm a little bit interested in Kirk Cousins as well. Dak hasn't been all that great, but I do expect the Dallas and Tampa Bay game to score some points. And so I do expect some back and forth there. So that makes Dak interesting for me. I do think that Dallas wins the ball game, but I think that Tampa Bay will be able to push them as well. And then, Kirk Cousins, it's just the opposite side of that Giants game, obviously. And I don't expect that game to go too crazy, but when he's got Justin Jefferson to throw to, it's hard to argue the fact that, he's not, it's not possible that he has a massive game. So that's what I'm thinking there at quarterback. Let's pop on over to running backs. Running backs, it's going to be interesting. I lead off with Eckler. Again, I really like that Chargers and Jacksonville game. I think we're going to see points there. It's going to be close. I think both teams are going to push each other. So I can see Eckler having a really good game. Same thing with ATN. They're going to be my top 2, running backs. Normally, I would shy away from playing 2 running backs from the same game. In this small of a slate, I definitely think it's much more viable. So I'm definitely not going to exclude them. I think they both could have, an optimal game, even though they're facing each other. I don't think that this is a scenario where we follow that typical golden rule. But again, this isn't a normal big slate. It's half the size, so you do have to change up your thought process a little bit. And then Joe Mixon, I really just feel like the Bengals are going to beat the shit out of the Ravens. And I don't know. I mean, it might even be a situation where, they're not playing, their guys for the entirety of the game. I could see them sitting a lot of guys, towards the end of that fourth quarter, or maybe for the entire fourth quarter, because I just think that that's going to be an ass cooking. You could see something, 45-10, something like that. I mean, it's possible. I'm not calling that for the score, but that's what I think we could see is something like that. So I can see Mixon, getting 20 plus touches, 25 touches maybe even. And with that kind of volume, I'm definitely going to be very interested. Leonard Fournette's an interesting one as well. It's hard for me to decipher that backfield. So I definitely do prefer, Lenny here over White. And if he gets you 15 points, I think you're looking to be in pretty good shape. And I think that that's well within his wheelhouse. It's probably the higher end of, a solid game for him, but I don't know how owned he's going to be. So I think that, that also makes him a little bit of a decent play. And then other guys I'm interested in, Jeff Wilson, even though I feel like the Dolphins are going to get smoked, he is probably going to be in a backfield without Mostert. So I think that we're going to get more volume out of him than what I think, people are going to expect because he may be the one guy really back there. So the volume, even though it's not going to be excessive because I don't see him getting 25 touches in this game, but I think that at his ownership, I think that he makes for an interesting play. Tony Pollard, no matter what the game script is there, he's going to be in play, and he's a guy that I like more than Zeke. So Pollard is definitely going to be in play for me. And then Saquon Barkley, the only reason I'm not higher on him is just because, I'm going to be playing Eckler and I'm going to be playing ATN. And at the cost of Eckler, he's up at, 8,300. It'd be really hard for me to afford him as well as Barkley. So for just those reasons, I think it just naturally, I wouldn't say puts me off of him, but it's going to put, it's going to lessen my ownership to him. So, maybe 10, 15% is probably where it's going to naturally lie. And let's go ahead and talk about receivers. This is going to correlate pretty well with my quarterbacks, of course. With that being said, my top guy is probably going to be Stephon Diggs. I'm going to be playing a lot of Allen. I think Diggs is a obvious natural stacking partner. I'm not reinventing the wheel there. He didn't have great games against Miami back in week 3. He had 7 catches for 74 yards, which isn't bad in real life. But for DFS purposes, it's only, 14.5 points. So, that was, not even 2x on his salary. And then just a couple weeks ago, week 15, he had 5 for 60, which is good for, looks like he lost a couple yards rushing as well. But he had just over 10 points, which wasn't even 1.5 times his salary. So maybe people will look at that and maybe the exposure will be down a little bit. I doubt it, but I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. Zay Jones is going to be interesting. He is kind of a boomer bust guy, and he hasn't really done anything in the last 3 weeks. But prior to that, he had 3 out of 4 games over 20 points. So it's there. And against Minnesota, you could see some real fireworks in this game. I mean, I could see 38-31 type game. And, you need to own a lot of, pieces here. I can definitely see it. And so I could see a big Zay Jones day. And at 4,300, I think that the price just calls to me. And, I just want to play him. Kind of same thing here with Isaiah Hodgkins. It's only 4,100. He's put up at least 15 points in 4 of the last 5 games. I'm sorry, 14 and some change last week, but, they had nothing to play for. So, if he got you 15, you'd be thrilled. That'd be almost 4x on his salary. Excuse me. So, obviously, a guy I'm going to be interested in with Daniel Jones, but also going to be interested in a one-off piece as well. Justin Jefferson, he on any slate he's on, he can break it. So he's a guy that I'm going to be very interested in. Makes for a pretty obvious run back on your Daniel Jones. You're not going to be unique doing that, but that's okay. Sometimes you just gotta pay for guys. And then Keenan Allen's the last guy that I'll really talk about here. Again, I expect Mike Williams to be out, so I think that Keenan's going to see solid volume. He's a guy who already gets a lot of volume, but would anyone be surprised if he gets 15 targets? And if he gets 15 targets, maybe he gets 10 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's well within his wheelhouse. He could very easily get you 20 points here, which was what you need for that 3x. He's at 7K, so you need 21 points from him. He could do that and more. Some other guys that I'm just interested in that I'll mention, that I'll have some exposure to: Demarcus Robinson, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, Gallup and Lamb of the Cowboys, Gage, Gabe Davis. Those are all guys that I'm going to end up with probably, varying levels of exposure to. All right, tight end. Now, normally tight end is an absolute wasteland, but, the way it works out here, we've got teams that have a lot of great tight ends here. Exposure-wise, I think Dawson Knox will be at the top because I'm going to be playing a lot of Josh Allen, and because tight end can be so shitty, it's just so volatile that I do always like the idea on slates where you correlate the tight end spot with your quarterback. So even if it's not a game or a quarterback I really want to double stack, if the tight end is viable, then I like putting a little extra consideration into playing him because I can correlate the position. But Dawson Knox, he's scored double-digit points in 3 of the last 4, and in the game he didn't, it was last week where he put up 9.3. So you very easily could get double digits from him here. I'm expecting that. I'm expecting, 12, 15-point games. So it's not just the correlation to Josh Allen. It's also, I think he's going to have a good game. Dalton Schultz is interesting to me as well. I guess I think that Cowboys and Bucs game is going to score some points. So, I like the idea at 4,300 of playing him in the tight end spot. You're not paying up, so to speak, but I don't feel like this is a week where we're punting tight end like we typically would. I think that most lineups are going to have a quality tight end in play because I think we can save money at wide receiver and you can make it work this week. Evan Ingram, I've talked about him here for a few weeks. He's basically a wide receiver. And I know we talk about, the elite tight ends and, we say, oh, they're basically a receiver. But I really think that's how Jacksonville treats him. They treat him like a receiver. And, he's had a couple of dud games in a row. But in this matchup, I just absolutely love what he could do. And so I'm very interested in Evan Ingram. Other tight ends I won't get into, but that I'm very interested in playing. TJ Hawkinson, Gerald Everett, George Kittle. I don't mind a sprinkling of Mark Andrews just in case, and maybe a little bit of Daniel Bellinger just to be a little bit different on those Daniel Jones stacks. And then defense. Again, man, it's interesting because we've got such a small slate. So, with that being said, Cowboys defense is my favorite. And I think sometimes people might hear that and go, oh, wait a minute, you expect this to be a high-scoring game. How is that going to be a defense that you like? Well, I think the misconception about defenses in DFS is, you want a defense that isn't going to give up a lot of points. Well, yes and no. Yes, ideally you want a defense that's going to give up, as few points as possible. But the reality is that's not necessarily where you're looking for points from a defense. You're getting points from sacks. You're getting points from turnovers. And Lord Almighty, if they score you a touchdown, then, you're in really good shape. And in this matchup, we know Tom Brady's going to be throwing the ball like crazy. Tom Brady obviously is a very wily veteran. Could be the best quarterback of all time, but he's not mobile. And the Cowboys like to bring pressure. So with how many times he's going to draw back the pass, you're telling me that there's not going to be some sacks there? There's going to be. You never know when a pick six is going to happen. You never know when someone's going to fumble and return for a touchdown. Cowboys, they like to score touchdowns at defense. So we could see it. That's my favorite defensive play this week. They're coming in 3,400. So, it's not cheap, but if you look at the salary of the rest of the, they're not near the top, but I don't think that $3,400 is out of bounds at all. The Bills defense is going to be very interesting. A little bit cheaper. They're $100 cheaper at $3,300. But again, I expect them to obliterate the Dolphins. And, Skylar Thompson's going to be the quarterback there. So we're probably going to see sacks. We're bound to see an interception or two. Again, could very well see a defensive touchdown. When you got Skylar Thompson back there, who knows what's going to happen. So really like the Bills. And then I don't mind sprinkling in some Giants. I don't mind sprinkling in some 49ers. I don't mind sprinkling in some Jaguars. Jaguars have been quietly really good on defense. A part of that is they've got a touchdown 3 of the last 4 weeks. So that's why they've scored double-digit points in 5 straight. And they haven't scored less than 12. But they haven't been facing very good offensive. You got Tennessee. You got Houston. You got the Jets. You got Tennessee again. And then the Cowboys with Dak, who likes to turn the ball over. So we'll see what they do against the Chargers. But, there's somebody that I'm willing to consider. That's for sure. Like I said at the beginning, if you've been enjoying these videos all year long, if you've watched the Showdown videos, which I will put a box up over here in just a second. If you're enjoying everything, do me a humongous favor and go ahead, pop on over here, subscribe to the channel, drop me a like, and then go check out right here. Go check out these videos. These are the Showdown videos. I got one for each matchup. I wish you all the best of luck. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next week.